know what, yeah. Anyway, to me it's a problem of education, and whenever I go to India I give some talks. I've tried to educate. You see, in the Indian culture tradition there's tremendous wisdom. Yes. I mean, one of my favourite cities is Calcutta, of course. And if you go around the great museum there, dedicated to Queen Victoria, built by Lord Curzon, yes, he was a great governor of India. Yeah, you've been, I take it. Yeah, Mother Teresa, of course. I mean, Calcutta was the British seat of governance for about 200 years. Well, now there's been riots and fighting, and yes, the reason is that these, sorry to say, silly kind of petty nationalist Hindu types have really tried to redefine what it means to be Indian. They're saying that you can't be Indian and also a Muslim, because they brought in this legislation that's right, that gives freedom to come and immigrate into India, but not if you're a Muslim. If you're a Hindu in Afghanistan or Bangladesh or Pakistan, you can move to India, and you can be any other religion, but you can't be either a Muslim or a Jew, which is like perverse. It's kind of anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim at the same time. That's not exactly going to win India many friends, is it? And the only people that are jumping up and down about this are the Hindu kind of fanatic types who, unfortunately, they're all Islamophobic. And this is a tragedy. See, that's right, when Victoria, when we were in India, we managed to keep the Hindus, the Muslims, the Sikhs, the Jains, the Buddhists, everyone pretty much on track. Yes, I know there was the mutiny. Yes, of course, that was a catastrophe, but it didn't last long, and it was dealt with. And then we got India back into this sense of a common purpose. That's what Common Secretary General meant by common values. You know, I've just been with the Jains. These people are incredible. They believe in total non-violence. They're the strictest people on the planet for that. And they've been going since long before Jesus Christ ever walked the earth, teaching ahimsa, non-violence. And yes, we need to help. So really, I'm just sorry to go on about this, but I feel so sorry for my Indian brothers and sisters, because we can't afford that India erupts into sort of Hindu Muslim riots like this. You need to have, if I may say so, with all due respect, to have a quiet word with the governor or your ambassador to India, and ask him to have a quiet word with Modi to reformulate this legislation. Otherwise, it's really not going to be good news. I know they won't particularly, they'll see that as meddling, but I think one has a duty to do one's bit, and maybe I can help on behalf of the Commonwealth Common Values Council. Send me, I'll talk to Modi. I mean, I'm happy. Nobody, I'm not important. I've nothing to lose, right? So I also think yes, I watched this amazing BBC documentary about Queen Victoria's last ever real confidant, her servant, who was an Indian Muslim. That's right, Abdul, I think he was called, who persuaded her to learn Urdu. Isn't that incredible? I mean, Victoria was an amazing woman who realised that to keep India within the family of nations of the Commonwealth, or the empire as we used to call it, we had to really deal with them on equal terms. And she learned Urdu, for God's sake, which is actually the same language as Hindi. This is the ridiculous thing. Urdu and Hindi are the same language, as you probably know, of course, yeah, just written with different alphabets. It's I mean, it's so sad. And Pakistan is such a wonderful country as well. I've got many Pakistani friends. Oh dear, why, if only we could get the Pakistanis and Indians to sort out Kashmir. That's right, and come up with a genuine peace settlement. Well, that's what I hope we can do with the Commonwealth Common Values Council. Some of the people that I've spoken to now think Kashmir should be independent again. Neither part of India nor part of Pakistan. India, of course, has gone and tried to take it over militarily. Yes, it's, I don't think that route is going to lead to anything but trouble, in fact. And I mean, I've studied in London. I've done a commentary on the Quran. You see, if that commentary were to be disseminated throughout India, if people, I don't know, if you somehow can arrange to have it transcribed and then translated into Urdu and Hindi, made available in bookshops throughout India and mosques and all the rest, it presents Islam in a way that people would realise it's not a threat. And it presents Islam in a way to Muslims that they realise that actually it's not a religion of war and violence, it's a religion of tolerance and wisdom, and inner search. Yes, I noted, apparently somebody says the Chinese are about to rewrite the Quran and update it so it's in conformity with Chinese Communist Party dictates. Well, that's a silly idea, because I think the Quran is fixed, that's it. But what we have to do is to interpret it in a new hermeneutic, yes. Yeah, and I know you have many, friends who are Muslims, and I mean, my former mentor and employer when I worked at the Muslim College in London, Dr. Zaki Badawi, yes. Yeah, you met him, didn't you? Yeah, he was, I think, the most learned Muslim scholar in Britain at the time. He had a degree from the University of London and Al-Azhar University. I know that he was a friend of your son, Charles, as well. And I was told that he died on his way to a meeting with Prince Charles to set up a Christian-Muslim council. It was tragic. He died far too early. We need people of his calibre. And there's people at Cambridge and elsewhere that are doing tremendous work on bringing Islam into let's say, cleaning away the condensation that's come up on our way of perceiving Islam. Yes, I mean, that is the irony, isn't it? That a lot of the anti-Islamic phobia that goes on is based on a certain whole narrative that's been constructed that's false. Yeah, I know, isn't it weird? It's a paradox of history. When we were in India, the one of the greatest threats to the British presence in India was the Wahhabis. The Wahhabi revolution in Saudi Arabia in the late 18th century, there was people in the Indian Empire that cheered that on and said, let's have a Wahhabi tradition in India. But our intelligence people in India said, no, that's ridiculous. That's a threat to all we were trying to do in India. I bring about a rational friendship between all the peoples of India, and indeed ultimately all the peoples of the world. Yeah, the Wahhabis were like the extreme revisionists, saying only Muhammad, only this way, only the Sunnis. Yes, and the leader of it, the founder, was happy to stone women to death if they so much as kissed, someone. Oh dear, I know. Yeah, I noticed that in your Queen's address actually over Christmas, that it had this sort of kind of feminist undercurrent. I thought that was a good point you made. Yes. Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry. Time moves on. So let me move through. I've got a few points I wanted to share. Let me move on to the next one. Now this is quite a difficult one, and forgive me. Bear with me. I have to ask you this formally. I've got another hat on. You see, I'm not only speaking as Commonwealth Common Values Council coordinator, and yeah, that I could go on about that. If we meet, we can talk. But no, I've also, you see, as a historian, when I did my PhD at the University of London, I don't know if you know, if you've ever read it, but I did dedicate it partly to your husband, because I was inspired by my conversation with him, and I was doing that interfaith peace work. So I did a lot of research, and the thesis ended on 9/11. I covered the period from 1945 to 2001. I mean, the thesis is published. It's there at Senate House. You can read it. I'd be happy to send you a copy. Yes, and I stopped at 9/11 because I didn't want to get into that. That was such a catastrophic, absolute horrendous series of events. Yes, I know New York well. I mean, I love New York. It's my other home, as it were. Yeah. I've taught there. I've spoken at the Secretary General of the UN's meetings for peace discussions. That's right. The UN I greatly support. Roosevelt and Churchill did a good thing when they set that up. So anyway, let me just say that So I decided a couple of years ago that I needed to research 9/11 in great detail, and I was amazed. I looked for a proper historical study of this catastrophic event that shaped our time, and no proper professional historians with a PhD in history have ever written a history of 9/11. I mean, here we are, the seminal event of our era, our millennium, and nobody has actually gone into it using the craft of historical research. Yeah, it's amazing, actually. I mean, what is history for if not to... I mean, Herodotus, one of my heroes who I studied at Brighton College, he said history is the study of the origin of wars. In those days, the Persian-Greek wars. You love history too. Well, we share something in common then, because I'm passionate about history. And one of the reasons I love Britain so much is it's so full of history. It's why I love London, the libraries. I spent years. That's right, the British Museum, the London Library, Senate House. You know, I joined every single library I could. Yeah, Lambeth Palace Library. I went to look at all the old Anglican. The one library, Your Majesty, I've never been into is your personal library, the Royal Collection at Windsor. Yeah. I'd give anything to be given a reader's ticket to that for a few days. Is that possible, do you think? Because I do know someone who worked as your librarian. Well, he was a friend of a friend, actually. I've just never had time to getting around to. No, I'd love a bit of study time. I've been to the Vatican Library. I have a reader's ticket. Thank you so much. It would be an honour to come and visit Windsor and spend some time in the library. I'm just a scholar, as it were. That's all I'm, But I'm one that feels that it's important to then disseminate and share the fruits of one's research. One doesn't just research in a vacuum, does one? You don't have enough time for scholarship. Well, Your Majesty, this is a problem that was shared also by your ancestor, the greatest king, I think, of the English. Yeah, King Alfred the Great. He's the only one known as the Great. Yeah. You know the story, do you? His correspondence with Asa? Well, I'll remind you. I'm sure you've known this. I love to share this story. So, King Alfred the Great, greatest monarch ever in the kingdom of Wessex, as it was then called. Yes, that's right, he burned the cakes. And yes, anyway, he was on the run from the Danes, and finally he realised the only way to defeat this force was through education, prayer and spiritual learning. So he got all the monasteries of Wessex to found schools. He encouraged scholars. He got scholars in residence attached to all the different churches. And yes, he brought people over from the continent. He brought Grimbold, who was a great scholar from the Frankish realms, to come, who said he even founded the University of Oxford. I suspect they just did a bit of teaching, I taught at Oxford briefly, and it's paradise to me. And Grimbold is my patron saint, therefore. Yeah, so Alfred was a great lover of learning. The point is, he had enough, humility. I know, he went to Rome, like you. You've been several times and met several of the popes, and I always love looking at the gifts you give them. You always choose them so wisely. Yes, Alfred went as a boy, and he wasn't in line for the throne even. He wasn't going to become king at all. He was just a younger son. Yeah, and the Pope actually of the day singled him out and said, this man is going to become important, and gave him, I think, a special book or something. Anyway, the story is that Alfred just loved learning, and his mother gave him these books to learn. And I mean, a bit like me, I was always reading as a kid. After lights out, I'd find a torch under the blankets and go on reading. You did the same, did you? Yes. So look, Alfred said, forgive me for taking so long on this story, but it's such a good one, that he complained to his bishop, Asa, who was Welsh, from St David's. Yes, I love St David's too. Yes. Well, I lived in Wales for 10 years, you see. I'm kind of Welsh as well as anything else. Yeah, for years on Wikipedia, my stubby page just said he's a Welsh educator, and that's fine. Yeah. Anyway, yes, Asa. Yes, so Asa, Alfred wrote to Asa, we have the letter, and said, Dear Asa, I have problems because I'm a king. I never have time to do all the studies I want. I never have time to finish reading all the books I want. Yes, and he used to have this tradition of having the books read out to him at meal times. If you were, in the court of Alfred, meals were reading time. Yeah. I don't know if you do the same, do you? I mean, it's such a good tradition. Especially good books, like really advanced stuff. I mean, my thesis, you could have that read out at lunch, for instance. Well, that would be fun. Now, that really would be fun. Yeah. So, anyway, Alfred did the same, and but he never had time to study them all. So he wrote to Asa and complained. He said, look, I'm too busy being a king. I have to do judgments, I have to see officials, I have to deal with, ministers, I have to chair the Witan, I have to organise the next battles, I have to train the army, blah, blah, blah. And so I never have time for study and scholarship. And I expect, ma'am, it's the same for you, isn't it? I don't know how you juggle it all. I mean, you're head of the church and the Commonwealth and the country, and you have to see the Prime Minister every week. And now you've got Brexit on your plate. I mean, God. Yeah, I mean, it's a nightmare. And yes, and you're a patron of all those. Yeah. Maybe you need like a double or two. Yeah. Anyway, look, I'm sorry to burn you, but let me get to the punchline of this particular story and we can move on. Because, okay, so what happened was Alfred complained and said, look, I expect one day, hopefully, you promised me I'll go to heaven. When I get to heaven, will there be a library where I can catch up on all my lost reading? And Asa wrote back, we have the letter, it's extant. I don't know where the original is, actually. I mean, it's possible it's in your Royal Library. Have you got any Anglo-Saxon documents there? Have you got the lost letters of Alfred? Because if so, I'd really like to help edit them. Yeah, it's one of my passions as a scholar is actually tracking down the original Anglo-Saxon manuscripts. Yes, I think William had a lot of them destroyed. It was terrible. I mean, that's really, like, barbarous, if that's the right word. Yeah, I do apologise, because one of my ancestors was with William's army, in fact, in 1066. But anyway, the point I'm coming to is that Asa wrote back saying, "O King," to Alfred, we know your passion for learning, and yes, indeed, if there is not a library in heaven already, there will be one built specially when you arrive. Yeah, and I love that story, and I always say to my students, look, if you want to find me in the afterlife, just ask when you get to heaven where the library is, and I'll be there. And I would say the same to you. I mean, if this is our last ever chat, or, I'll see you up there and we can compare notes, right? Because it's been a very funny ride down here, as you say in your Christmas address, a bumpy ride. Yeah. Oh dear. Yes, okay, so look, sorry, that was all very long-winded way of saying that I would love a ticket to the come and study in the Windsor Library a bit. And especially if there's some original letters by Alfred hidden away. Yeah. I know. That's why I'm so against war, because libraries get destroyed. One of the great libraries I love is the Khoda Baksh Library in Patna in India, which was founded at the time of Lord Curzon. And it's got all these manuscripts from Islamic India. It's priceless. Some Hindu fanatic mob are going to go and burn that place. I mean, we have to tone down this interreligious hatred. Yes, I know that's what the Freemasons have been trying to do for the last 300 years. And I know your dear husband has been trying to help them do it. But they have to do it more strongly. Like Kipling, we have to fly that flag of brotherhood and interfaith amity. Yes, I know your father was a great Mason, and so was Queen Victoria's. I mean, that's the whole lineage of. Yes, well, you know that. I mean, it's a sort of Sufi, mystical brotherhood tradition that transcends religious differences. It draws on the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. Yeah, that's right. The Kabbalah. Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, That's right. It's this universal wisdom that transcends the outer religions, and that's what inspired me in my work to do the Commonwealth Interfaith Council. And it's why I've always felt at home in the Anglican Church, because I know that the tradition is one of that universality. Well, to me, you see, yes, Christ is an exemplar of that school. That's why I love Christ. He was a teacher in that universal wisdom tradition. Thank you, thank you. So few people know that. Yeah, I know. Well, what can we do? Well, we have to, yes, this was the point your namesake, Queen Elizabeth I, made when she was in power, that the kind of church she wanted was genuinely universal, i.e. Catholic, but also genuinely intellectually rigorous, i.e. Gnostic, and also was against negativity and violence. And yeah, she said that immortal thing, I don't want to pry into the hearts of my subjects, but she drew the line at people plotting against her. Well, quite right too. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. Anyway, look. Okay. So now talking about plots, right? Can I just go on and make this next point here? Thank you so much for your patience. I'm trying to be brief, Your Majesty. There's so much to say. It's all bubbling up at once. Isaac Luria was once told. You've heard of him, of course. Yeah, the great Kabbalist. He said he could never write a book because every time he opened his mouth, everything used to come out all at once like a gushing stream. Yeah, it's ironic, isn't it? I don't have that problem. I have written about 50 books, but it's nothing compared to what I ought to do. Yeah. Yes, I'd be happy to send you anything. Yeah. How's Philip's system of things stored in the basement at Buckingham Palace? I think it's ingenious what he drew there. So look, moving on, let me just say, I'm speaking also as chair of this thing called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for 9/11. The International Historical Commission of Inquiry into 9/11. Yeah, I'm going back to the 9/11 thing, because, yes, that created this terrible anti-Islamic sort of fervour in the world, that these Muslims, dastardly people, did this terrible deed. Well, if you read my findings, a 2-volume book, it can't just have been that Al-Qaeda bunch. It can't have been that did that 9/11 thing. The evidence is overwhelming. I'm sure you've yes. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up a commission of inquiry into 9/11. I mean, why me? Well, you can ask that. I don't know. Why me? Somebody's got to do it. I'm the most trained historian to ever study this topic that I can find, and I'm just brave enough to do it. I'm the guy like Edward Herbert that would go and do the single challenge. Edward Herbert, do you remember him? He wrote the book on truth, one of my intellectual heroes. Yeah, he used to run Montgomery Castle, which he surrendered to Parliament because he wanted to just preserve his library. He went to London. Yeah, Lord Herbert of Cherbury, the founder of British metaphysics of truth, really. Yeah, he's one of my mentors, as it were. So, that's right, the whole thing I'm doing is about truth. I know, but... So the 9/11 Historical Commission will be looking at all the facts and data, and therefore I have a couple of questions for you to ask about that, and I'm going to ask if you'll come and give some witness statements, because you are a very wise woman, a very wise statesman. You were around on 9/11, and you have access to all British intelligence files, don't you? Well, I mean, at least you can ask for them, can't you? Yeah, I mean, you're the head of the state. The intelligence can't withhold intelligence from you, can it? Ah, I see it. You have to know what you're asking for to be able to ask for it. Ah. Well, who advises you on intelligence matters as a matter of interest? I don't think the Prime Minister is the person always to rely on, because they have their own vested interests. You need your own private, intelligence advisor to tell you what to ask for. Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't see everything. No, especially in today's age when it's all electronic. Yeah, there's the moral question of what to ask for, based on moral intuition and so on. So anyway, the question I would ask, and I'm not going to ask it now, I'm not asking you to reply now, I'm saying that when we have our commission meeting in The Hague, probably later on 9/11 this year, 2020, next year rather, I will ask you in writing to maybe submit a couple of answers. And the question I want to ask is simply this. Okay, I mean, you can write this down if you want, but... Oh, you're recording it? Yeah, fine, okay. Okay, so at what point were you, as monarch, told these events had happened? That's point number one. I mean, I have a friend who had to wake up Tony Blair and tell him it had happened, I think. Yeah, worked for the Cabinet Office at the time, yeah. Okay, that's the first question. The second question is, at what point were you told who was responsible for it and under whose authority? Yeah, so that's the point I'll be trying to get to. And then my next question is, were you ever at any point told that the American narrative that Al-Qaeda did it was somewhat dodgy, that there wasn't much evidence behind it, and that some of that evidence seemed to be false? Now those are the right questions to have asked. You see, you should have asked your intelligence people. You should, I mean, it's not too late, right? This is quite important. We've got to, what we have to do is clear up who actually did 9/11 and with whose authority. And so if people in the UK intelligence circuit knew America had faked some of the evidence, I know it's shocking, isn't it? It's shocking, but it begins to look as if they did. Yeah, some sort of extreme right-wing American populist, let's make America great type of thing. Yeah, and some of them thought they were doing Israel a favour. That's right, that's the tragedy. These people thought that by creating this fake event, they would sort of anchor Israel in perpetuity as a safe country. I know. It's complete madness because, yeah, you don't get peace with Islam by faking events like this. It just makes them really cross, and more 9/11s likely, and it means the whole world has to then batten down and build walls everywhere. I know, as a Christian monarch you must be tearing your hair out. Anyway, so look, that's one little job I'm doing. I'm trying to clear up the 9/11 thing, and any evidence you can submit, I will put to you in writing, okay, if you could testify. Yeah, but you see, the point I'm coming to is if that was in some way partly faked, then it means the demonisation of Islam that was then used to justify the 2003 invasion of Iraq was premised on false information, i.e. misintelligence. We were sold, that's right, to call it a catastrophe, I don't think, the English language needs a new Shakespeare to invent a whole bunch of new words, really. Yeah, I have published a dictionary of philosophical words. Yeah, a new one. Yes, that's right. I think one needs to continuously develop the English language to reach out to places, to say things that haven't been said before. Yeah, misintelligence is one of them. Yeah, I would call these people misintelligence agents. Yes, okay, so moving on, the other thing I want to report, and in a sense this is me reporting back as a wisdom agent to you, a bit like John Dee might have done to Queen Elizabeth I, I'm now doing this to you in this context. I've also set up this thing called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East. It's a long story, don't even ask, we don't have enough time, but, I've just been blessed with many contacts because of my interfaith work, because of my years of study at the University of London and teaching. I pioneered interfaith teaching work. Yes, with Lord Combermere, a great man. Yes, I loved Lord Combermere. He had me teaching at Birkbeck College. Yeah, with Rabbi Hugo Grin. I loved Rabbi. He survived Auschwitz. And my closest friend, Rabbi Friedlander, a wonderful savant. Yeah, you knew them, yes. Oh dear, they don't make their like anymore. They're both dead. It's dreadful. So anyway, those people used to come in and teach. I would chair the meetings, and I've always loved Jewish people and Muslim people. I've loved people from Palestine as well as from Israel. And I've always wondered, why on earth can't these people get on? That's right, I used to go to parties in Bishop's Avenue in Hampstead. Yes, I love the street. Yeah, for Palestinian-Arab friendship, run by my dear friend Saida Nusabi. You may know her family used to have the keys of the Holy Sepulchre Church in Jerusalem. Yeah. Yeah, we were trying, and Harold Pinter was part of that group, and there were many Jewish savants and Palestinian and Muslim savants, and we were trying to get dialogue. Yes, that's right. And then the Oslo Accords, and everyone thought it was all going to be fine. And then they killed Rabin. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, that's what we're up against. You see, this populist, racist, nationalist, let's shoot the peacemaker. You know, they killed Gandhi, they killed Martin Luther King. You know, don't get me started. And of course, Christ himself, that great universalist visionary of peace. His death caused an enormous amount of trouble. Yeah, I know. I try to. People say, yeah, I'm working on understatement. You have it down to a fine art. I just can't. You know, yeah. It was a bit of a bumpy year. I love that. Yes. Well, and how? Yeah. But also in Israel and Palestine. I mean, my dear, Your Majesty, I know when I was in Bethlehem, right? I went there for a honeymoon with my then partner, and it was the first time to Bethlehem, and we met the leader of the scout group in Bethlehem, a Palestinian. Yeah, and he was amazing. And he said, he was an older man, he'd been running the scout group in Bethlehem for years, and he remembered when the British ran Palestine, and he with tears in his eyes, he said, God, I wish you'd never left. Yeah. I know. I think it's really sad the way that, yes, we gave Israel a state, and yet we couldn't at the same time deliver Palestine a state. Why on earth didn't we stay just a few more months and let them both have their states? None of the problems would have been going on. I don't understand it. I'll never... I know, you weren't queen at the time. Yeah, it wasn't your fault. And you were quite young. Yeah, well, I wasn't even born, so it wasn't my fault. But if I was in the Heavenly Library, then... I probably was, by the way. That's where I go between lives. But... I think I looked down from the library and saw what was going on and thought, uh-oh, better go back down there soon. Oh dear, I know. So look, we still have to pull that one off. We still have to get a Palestinian state to make it equal, so these people can... Yeah, they really deep down love each other. I mean, Palestinian intellectuals have a brain the size of 10 planets. I've met... Yeah, I used to know Afif Safia, who was... Yeah, you met him. He was the ambassador from Palestine to London. And then he went off to the Vatican and the USA as ambassador. He's a great intellectual. Yeah, he spoke at meetings I ran in Parliament. I know, I used to use meeting rooms in the House of Lords in the days when it was a civilised place before all the corruption broke out. Yeah. I know, I don't know why they blocked me from being aboard, but I think it's just... My problem would be I would tell the truth too much. Yeah. Might be dangerous. I know we have the same sense of humour. Thank you. Yeah. So that's one thing I've been doing, trying to help the Christians, for instance, in Palestine. There's so many of them. In the press, you think they're all mad, crazy, Muslims, but a lot of these Palestinians are just amazing, peace-loving Christian types, Arabs, who I know one of their theologians I met. He's coined this concept of Arab liberation theology. Yeah, he runs the Christmas church in Bethlehem. Well, we need to, anyway, this is, look, between you and me, I know it's a private conversation between on the need to know basis, but I think Britain owes it to the Middle East to help create that two-state solution. And then to get